Hey everyone, welcome to Flavor Talk with the BBQ Pro Shop Factory team. I'm co-host Brian Neal, aka Mr. Freak of Smoke Freaks Barbecue.
And I'm Ann Neal, aka Ms. Freak, and together we are the tongues and testers for the flavor guide at BBQ Pro Shop, the world's first online seasonings decoder. Jeff Belmonte, our partner in flavor and owner of BBQ Pro Shop, couldn't be with us tonight, so our video feed is missing a square in this episode. But we will be all right because the doctor is in. Tonight, we are joined by a true barbecue legend. He's a barbecue Hall of Famer, a celebrated cookbook author, and a contestant on Judge and some of the coolest barbecue TV shows out there. And of course, he's the mastermind behind some amazing seasonings we carry here at BBQ Pro Shop. Welcome to the show, Ray Lampe, aka Dr. Barbecue.
Great to see you guys. Thanks for having me. I can't believe it took this long to get around to doing this.
Right?
But I can't wait.
I know we are stoked to have Dr. Barbecue on the show because he's been building and sustaining a barbecue brand and a serious business for over 2 decades. We're going to start tonight by getting to know Ray and his barbecue story, and then we'll get into the business of barbecue and unpack that a little bit. Along the way, we'll talk about creating and flavors and recipes that people love. And finally, we're going to do a deep dive into his experience as a contestant and judge on some cool barbecue TV shows like Barbecue Brawl and Chopped and some others. So thanks to everyone who's joining in live, and thanks to everyone joining in after the fact through the magic of streaming. Be sure to sound off on the comments so we know you're here, and post those questions and comments along the way. We'll be sure and get them up on the screen and address them. Take it away, Ann.
All right. So before we get into the main part of our focus here, let's get into just a little bit of your origin story for folks that might not be familiar with how you got started in the world. And I'm kind of curious, Dr. Barbecue, what were you doing before you got into this amazing, crazy barbecue life as we like to call it?
You got to be old to know about my origin in this business. It's like everybody else's. So I learned how to cook in high school. I just took a foods class. It was the 70s, and we thought that would be a fun day. We were starting to have like elective classes, and we thought that'd be a good goof off class, be a bunch of girls in the class. And that was all correct. It was, and it was fun. But from day one, I liked to cook. I never expected that. We learned how to make, but this was 1971. The old lady teacher was like, this was post World War II. She was teaching us how to cook for our families. It wasn't meant for boys to be in the class, but I really enjoyed it. I learned how to make blueberry muffins and a quiche and an apple pie and stuff like that. It's just what it was, but I really enjoyed it from then on. So I did it. I took 2 years out of the 4 in high school. I did take cooking classes, and so I got to learn how to cook, and I really enjoyed it. So I cooked from the time I was 14 years old at home, but never barbecue. So sure. I was 18 years old, getting out of high school. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was a bagger at Jewel, which is only any Chicago person knows what an honorable job that is. And my father dies a month after I get out of high school, and he's got a trucking business. So this is my new job. I jumped into his trucking job, and he ran a few trucks, and I learned how to do it, and I did it for 25 years. But in 1982, so I would still cook though. I was a young guy and I liked to cook. 1982, I guess I was 25. A friend of mine signs us up for a rib cooking contest. Mike Royko, the old Chicago columnist, again, another epic Chicago story.
You got to do that contest?
Yeah, that's where it starts.
Wow.
Years later, I befriended Dave Raymond from Sweet Baby Ray's, and turns out that's the day both of our barbecue careers began.
Oh, I did not know that.
Dave knew the date. It was September something in 1982. So we just passed, I guess, 40 years. 43 years since that happened.
Yeah.
So anyway, we go down there. A friend of mine signed us up, and he had no interest in cooking. We were just going to go to party. But I was like, I knew how to cook. So I was like, well, I'd never cooked any barbecue, but I'll give this a shot. I borrowed a Weber kettle. And another great Chicago thing, this is like, and we went to Grant Park, where the ball fields are right there. If you're in the hotel on Michigan Avenue, the ball fields right across the street, the sunken ones, that's where they had it. And everybody got a 10 by 10 spot. We cooked some ribs, or I cooked some ribs, and I didn't win anything that day. I didn't really know what I was doing. And there were some people that did, but I was hooked. So that's why I say my story is like everybody else's. I'm sure this is how you guys started. You went to a barbecue event and said, "Oh my God, these are my people," and here we are. And for me, it
And
just
here
happened
we
a
are.
little bit before everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's how I got involved in
Yeah.
barbecue.
I
And
love it.
So I can't believe you didn't even have a Weber grill to burn some brats or anything. I
that's
mean,
a true
what
story.
was barbecue to you at that point before you did that first event? Had you ever lit a
Probably
fire?
Chicago style ribs. I guess when I was a kid, my dad had a grill, an old charcoal, like the chuck wagon one, but he'd pull it out once a year. His buddy was a butcher, so he'd get some steaks and he'd pull that thing out once a year, and that was pretty much it. But Chicago ribs were a thing always. But for most of us, that meant something. It was probably boiled or cooked in the oven at a
Yeah.
steakhouse kind of place or a Greek restaurant, and they
Mhm.
charred them up with some barbecue sauce. And I'm not saying that's not good eating; it is.
Yeah.
That's probably what barbecue was to me at that time going in.
It's
Gotcha.
amazing to me how many people that you just said, got their start at a comp kind of on that sounds interesting kind of thing, doing ribs with a Weber involved. That was our start,
Yep.
doing ribs, a rusty old WSM that he picked out of the alley is what, we were cooking on. And wow.
So then
So
in
yeah,
1991, I mean, that's the end of the story, but I got to tell you this part.
yeah.
So I'm doing the Mike Royko Fest every year, and they quit having it. So I don't know what to do. So I look, and in the newspaper is a little blurb about the Illinois State Barbecue Championship sanctioned by the Kansas City Barbecue Society. I'd never heard about any of this. It was the first time they were doing it. It was in West Chicago at a bar. And I got to go there. So I called the guy. And then I had this oval grill, kind of like a Weber kettle, but I
Mhm.
didn't know you were supposed to cook all four categories. So I just decided I was going to cook a turkey. And back then, the category was poultry. You could cook any piece of poultry you wanted. So I cooked a turkey, and I went there, and I didn't know I was supposed to cook the other categories. So that was all I turned in. And I got third place with my turkey. It's the first trophy I ever got. And I mean, talk about being hooked then, because now I had seen the real thing. There was there was guys there that had been doing it for a while at that time.
I get
Carolyn
it.
Wells. That's the day I met Carolyn Wells, and
Oh, wow.
and then from then I was all in. Then I was really hooked to it.
The hook sets deep with that
Yeah,
first trophy. I always say, careful what you
yes, exactly. I still have it. We moved recently, and I got rid of pretty much everything. But amazingly, this trophy is an old plastic bowling trophy, and I'll get it if we get a second. It somehow survived. So 1991, it's 34 years old. I don't take that good a care of my stuff generally, but it's meant to be with me forever, I think.
But it's precious. It's precious.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you cooked this competition and, you did the first KCBS comp with just turkey for the poultry category. How did you get kind of from there to this, idea of barbecue becoming a career, more than a comp or more than a hobby?
Well, it was so now along the way, some of my friends had sort of
Mhm.
gotten into it. Like I would cook a bunch of ribs for parties regularly around the neighborhood, and so they kind of knew I was that guy, and so now it was time to step it up and go do some other contests. So I rounded up a couple of my friends that wanted to learn this as well. So we had a team. And we started cooking, but there was no contest back then. There was one contest in Illinois, maybe they might have been cooking in Murfreesboro, but they were actually, but it was a Memphis in May contest, which
Sure.
we didn't know anything about that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Probably the second place I ever went was to Cedar Rapids, Iowa for a Memphis in May contest, because there just weren't any KCBS contests. I would, at some point then I was really getting into it. I would drive to Kansas City every Friday to either cook in a comp or judge or just go eat in restaurants, because it was such it just was not part of the culture in Chicago, and Kansas City wasn't that far. And I'd go sit in the KCBS office and listen to Gary Wells. I mean, Gary was my friend, and learn from him, what was all about. But it was still just my hobby. I had a successful trucking business, but in 2000, the trucking business just had run its course and it was time to do something different. It just wasn't going to work anymore. And my heart wasn't in it. So then it was time to become a barbecue man. And so I told you off air the story about moving to Florida, and I was the original food truck guy. I built this nice trailer. But the part of the story everybody leaves out is that it really was not successful. I always tell people, you want to have everybody. So many young chefs want to have a food truck. I always tell them, follow your best food truck, the guy you think is killing it. Follow him home and see what kind of house he lives in and what kind of car he drives, and then tell me if you think the food truck biz is still really good.
Tell me what makes that business so hard to be, successful.
I think we all think we can do it because it's just so enamoring. It just looks so glamorous to be in that truck. You're the guy in the truck. Like there's a current commercial running down here for some medication, and the guy in the food truck is pouring up a cup of coffee, and man, he's got his whole family there working with him. That's just not how it goes. So you plan, I'm going to sell, if I sell 100 sandwiches every day and 200 on Saturday, I'm going to make $2,000 a week. Great. So the first day you make 100 sandwiches and you sell 30 of them, and it goes downhill from there. And I mean, I had weeks, months, seasons that I made money. I don't want to say it's a complete failure, but it just doesn't translate like everyone thinks it's gonna.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to run a. Sorry, go ahead, Ann.
I was just going to say that's I think you're getting into kind of one of the main parts of our discussion, the business of barbecue, and some early, notes that you've just shared. Brian, I'm going to hand it back over to you. You want to take us into the next section?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at meandering, so
you got
to knock me back in line.
Right into the next section perfectly. Yep.
Awesome. Well, in the early days, you started to do this truck. Were you doing that as a one-man show, or did you have the whole family in the back washing dishes and working the fryer, or what were you doing, and what were you selling?
No, I moved to Florida on my own because I had this plan. I'm ready to do this, and my friends all thought I was nuts because I grew up in a suburban Chicago where everybody went in their local business, their dad's business, or something like that. And and all of a sudden I'm 43 years old, and I was like, hey, listen, I'm moving to Florida to sell barbecue out of a truck. My friends thought I was insane. No, I moved to Lakeland because I had been going down there for the barbecue cook-off, and I had some friends, and it was the only place I really had any friends where it was warm. And I knew I couldn't do a food truck in Chicago in the winter, so I didn't really. It seemed obvious to me, as ridiculous as it is. And I just went down there, and I had been to Lakeland, and I knew Lakeland was redneck enough that I could probably find a place to do this. Food trucks wasn't like a cool thing like it is now. It was.
So would you just set up on a corner in some business's parking lot, or how would you make that work?
I found a produce market. First I went to the flea market. There was a big flea market, and it was actually pretty good, but it was just one day a week I would work. So it didn't, I needed to find something that was a little more substantial. So
I've probably been to that flea market. I remember going to one just about an hour outside of St. Pete.
This was in Lakeland. This was pretty gnarly. It was over.
This was gnarly.
It was pretty rough over there. But so anyway, I found a produce market up on North 98 in Lakeland. It's as redneck as it could be. I mean, the guy that ran the produce market was a great guy, became my good friend. He had 0 teeth, and he didn't care. He didn't want no teeth.
Hey, if the barbecue's tender, you don't need them.
Well, that's true. That's why he liked me, probably, because my barbecue was tender. I mean, he knew how to sell produce on a street corner, and he was good at it, and he made a living at it, and he had his family, and he was a character. But it was pretty redneck.
Couldn't eat the apples.
But I did well. I did okay. And then we moved across the street at one point to the hardware store. There used to be Scotty's hardware stores down here, and it was just a local chain, and I did well there. But then I came back the following season.
What kind of stuff were you selling out of this truck as a one-man band?
Well, I had hired a girl part-time at some point. a good lady that would come in and buy sandwiches from me, and I hired her. But it was mostly me for sure. I was selling pulled pork sandwiches. I would cook the pulled pork on like Tuesday, and shrink wrap it all, pull it and shrink wrap it all, and then I would open on Wednesday or Thursday, whatever it was, and I would cook chicken parts live that day, and I would cook ribs live as we went. So I had chicken and ribs and pulled pork, and I made cornbread. Like I invented this cornbread casserole thing that was kind of like cornbread, but it would stay moist all day because it would just sit on the counter all day. And I think I made banana pudding at some point, and I tried making coleslaw. There was just so many different, no matter what you made for coleslaw, somebody hated you because it wasn't like their aunts or their grandmas. It should have onion. It shouldn't have onion. And finally, my secret one that worked pretty good, Arlie Bragg gave me this idea. He said, you just take ranch dressing and mix it in with the coleslaw, with the cabbage mix, and that's it. And people love it. And they did. Nobody figured out what it was, which is always amazing to me. They never figured it out. And it was okay, but still some people didn't like it. And when things changed and everybody liked my coleslaw, I just started buying it from Sam's, and then everybody shuts up because it's like that expected generic restaurant coleslaw. And so that was
well, you've done a lot of things since then. So what was one of the early pivot points that took you away from just being a food truck and, growing this into something bigger?
Yeah, this is where it really gets entrepreneurial, because I'm sitting there bleeding money. I had come out of the trucking business. I was 43. I wasn't broke by any means, but I could only go backwards for so long. I couldn't keep doing this business and losing money. So, at some point I realized I've got to do something here, something different. So I started poking around. A friend of mine that lived down there in Florida was in the grill business. And he said, listen, these grill companies need to hire guys like you. Grill industry was really kind of blowing up, and they were all just salesmen that didn't care. They didn't know how to cook. They would just burn some food. And we had these big trade shows that were at a time a big deal. And so he connected me with Napoleon Grills, a Canadian company, and they hired me to do some trade shows with them. And it was really successful because everybody else had a salesman out there, just not really with any energy to it. And I was in a chef jacket and a chef hat and had 3 grills, and I was cooking, all kinds of interesting, cool stuff. And it changed. It was really effective. Sure. But it was a gas grill company. So it didn't really, it wasn't a great fit for me. And they were a Canadian company that, my buddy Ted Reeder ended up the next year. Ted went to work for him, and it was perfect. That was a perfect fit. But I was at a trade show with Napoleon in Atlanta, and the Green Egg guys were right next to me. And so I was like, at the time, you guys, I don't know if you were ever old enough to be on the barbecue forum, the early days of the internet. And I used to just talk shit about the Big Green Egg guys all
Barbecue Brethren, I remember that one.
Brethren.
Yeah, this is even before that. I was part of those guys too, but the barbecue forum was actually Ray Basso was a Kansas City guy. We put him in the Barbecue Hall of Fame. He was like an early software guy. Before all these, you could just have a forum without knowing what you were doing. Now you can, anybody can create something. You just do a Facebook page. Ray was like a software guy, obsessed guy, but he created this space for us. That's why I was at my neighbor's house, and she had just bought a Gateway computer, the big cow boxes from way back in like 2003 or 4. And she showed me this barbecue page, and I'm like, oh, what is that? I don't know what that is. So I was like, I got to get in on this. Whatever they're doing, I need to find out about it. So I buy a Gateway mainly to look at the barbecue for. I needed it for business too. I just didn't really know what I was going to do with it yet. But I jumped in, and that's what I started doing it. So, but I would just talk shit about the Big Green Egg guys all the time. I mean, I called them egg holes and egg offs, and they had a problem with their hinge. And if you needed to hit this lever and then pull the lid down, and if you didn't pull the lever, which happened all the time, the band would come off and your lid would fall on the ground and break. And every Monday morning there'd be a bunch of guys posting pictures of these. And so I inspired everyone that when you see one of those, you should drink a shot. So every time somebody broke their egg, we would drink a shot. So the Green Egg guys knew that I was, antagonistic, but for whatever reason, we just hit it off. and I talked them into hiring me then. I mean, again, this was, I don't like to,
So what was
hate to
driving
say I
you in
invented it,
this?
but I invented it.
What was driving you in this direction to go deeper into barbecue? Was it passion about barbecue, need for money, you like smelling smoky, you like to eat? What was it?
It was money all the way. It's what I like to do for sure, but I needed a way to make a living. I was 43 years old and I needed a way to make a living. So I needed to go whatever direction this took me that could make money. And,
Hey, and even when you're good, it's hard to make a living doing
Yeah.
barbecue competitions.
well, that's what people don't understand about a lot of fun projects like this. You now have to figure out how to turn it into something that pays. What do you like to make? 100 grand a year? That's a lot of barbecue seasoning to sell. That's a lot of cook-offs you got to go to. It's a lot of, chicken prizes you got to win. It's hard to convert that. And that's the entrepreneur thing, I think. And it's the mistake what we all make. I mean, I kind of did it too, because I certainly ran out of money before it turned around for me. Because you think it's your passion, and it is. It's great. You love to cook barbecue. It's so much fun. But that doesn't, who's the most famous barbecue guy in the world right now? Let's just say Myron. Well, if Myron wasn't who he is, he wouldn't make money at it. I knew Myron when he wasn't making money at it. But Myron is an entrepreneur and a ball busting, hard working guy, and he's going to figure it out. But not everybody's got that in them. And I've seen more than a couple of guys lose a bunch of money thinking they were going in the barbecue business.
Yeah, a lot of people have extreme passion for barbecue, and a lot of them take a stab at turning that into a business, but not a whole lot of them get to the point where they get to quit their day jobs and sail off into the sunset.
Well, you also got to remember, you also got to make a living for the next 30 years, depending on how old you are. Just because you made some good money for 5 years, I worry about all these people going in the food products business right now. I don't think they're all going to be there in 10 years. And I'm a little worried about some of them.
Yeah. Well, what would you say are some things that separate those who make it from those who don't?
So it's business. It's not because you love it. It's not because you're the best barbecue cook. It's not because nowadays social media has a huge part of it. I mean, we see people that maybe don't even have the passion for the actual cooking and the food, but they know about algorithms and they do make a cute little video every day. And so it can be that way, but even that, it's business. That's the right thing to do because it's business. It's not about the food. It's just unfortunate, but that's really how I feel about it. That you just have to always remember it's business. And if you're not meant to be self-employed, it's not going to work out for you. Some of us are and some of us aren't. Some people are much better off having a job.
So we got a question in the house from our buddy House. He took one of our rib camps a couple months ago, brought his own seasoning to the table and won the day. So he's definitely got talent. He's definitely got passion. And he's curious what you would say is the best way to kind of slow play your way into barbecue. Can't quit the day job yet, but kind of wants to get into cooking for money.
Well, for me, it was always doing something different than everybody else. That doesn't seem to be the plan anymore.
He's got that, man. His seasoning was crazy wild. I never had anything quite like it. But anyway, sorry, go on.
Good. I like him for that because most of these people do the same thing as everybody else. And even the competition became that, we were the test pilots. When I started cooking, I told you I cooked a turkey, and then we would cook whole chickens and cut them up and put them into box and spare ribs, back ribs, any combination of that was acceptable. It was so different. Pork boxes didn't look anything like they do now. And now it's which I get that, we were part of that too. When a guy wins, and Blues Hog is the perfect example. Bill Arnold was a good friend of mine. I took cases of that stuff to the UK. I was doing a cooking class over there, and they were rabid hungry to learn about barbecue. And I brought a bunch of Blues Hog and gave it to them. And I said, "Here, this is what you need to do," because we all know that if if you don't do the same thing as everybody else, it's probably not going to work out for you. Unfortunately, with competition, it's kind of what drove me out of it. Honestly, I
We all
like
got the
doing
same.
differently than everybody else, you know. So,
All right. So
I mean,
number
like I
one,
said,
be different, stand
yeah, no, I
out,
mean,
do something different. What are some kind of minimum entry things you got to know just to get into selling a food product commercially
well,
before you can really safely get away with that without somebody coming after you?
well, it's a whole lot easier than it used to be because now you getting a logo and getting labels made is not that hard. I did my first food products in the early '90s, and it was, you know, getting a logo. You had to find an artist and hire him, and I mean it was not a small thing. And getting labels made was someone had to do the typesetting and for color, and I mean it wasn't like it is now. So
Yeah.
it's much easier now. It's much easier to register a logo or register a trademark if you want. I mean, we have the internet. Without, you know, we were doing this stuff without the internet. It makes it so much easier. But always keep in mind, it's business. So all those business things, count the money right. If you're not sure you can make money on your seasoning, well, now you've got a big problem on your hands, because even if everybody likes it, if it's not profitable, you need to think in the grand scheme of things, the cost of your product has to be, let's just say, 25% of the sale price. So if we can sell it, luckily the prices have gone up. We can sell them for $12 now, but you still can not have more than $3 in a bottle. Or it's going to be really hard to make money. I mean, those are not locked in numbers, but you got to get it down so far so that you can make a buck at it.
And House, I would just say, if you want to start selling food, one tip is, a lot of guys really lose their shirts on waste. You know, they buy a bunch of food, cook a bunch of food, and then people don't show up. If you can figure out a way to develop an audience that orders from you in advance, and then you drop it off or they pick it up, so you know what your demand's going to be, whether that's selling Thanksgiving turkeys, must order by the 22nd, or whatever it is. If you can find a way to avoid that waste, you'll be way better off than, you know, make a bunch of food and hope they show up. Weather can kill you.
I did plenty of that too. I fed all the guys. I found, usually, like, if you got hot food left over from the day, a shelter can't take it. It's just not safe. And I found a guy that said, I don't care, I'll take anything. I got a bunch of guys to feed here. And he would take everything. And I brought him a lot more food than I wanted to. What really hurt was the ribs. When I had to give him ribs, that hurt, because at the time they were pretty high.
Yeah. Now, man, brisket, boy, I'd eat it myself before I give it away or let it die.
There's
well,
a
thanks for that.
A lot of barbecue guys wishing they wouldn't have pushed brisket to be the #1 food item, because now they all got to serve it.
Yeah.
So, Ray, what are some of the things that you would say have changed the most over just the barbecue industry writ large over the last couple of decades?
So what I saw was, back in the day, we had the OG barbecue. I'm talking about restaurants, and that was the driving force of it back then. The OG guys were old barbecue guys. So the pit was built into the wall of the restaurant, or maybe there was a big old offset or something outside. Whatever it was, that's how they cooked. And then it's all of a sudden, as it was becoming popular, the Southern Prides and the Old Hickories showed up. And God bless them, man. They make your life really easy, and they cook okay barbecue. You can cook really good barbecue, but not everybody is. But all of a sudden there was mediocre barbecue everywhere. There was so much of it, and it was all okay. It wasn't anything outstanding. It just got watered down. So we had all this mediocre barbecue. And then came along the Aaron Franklin generation that said, we can do this better. And they I always tell people, don't go to Franklin's, go to Lockhart, because that's who he's emulating. Those are the 100-year-old restaurants that are still there. But those guys brought it to life. We were never going to get this barbecue revolution that we have with the Aaron Franklin generation is cooking on Southern Prides and Old Hickories. It needed somebody, and Aaron gets a lot of credit for it, deserves it, that said, we can do it this old school way, and got perfectionist about it, and started buying prime briskets instead of no roll briskets, select briskets. And they really upped the game.
Ray, What do you think though, if you're just starting out, do you lean toward equipment that'll do a lot of the work for you, or do you go for, the big old propane tank smoker and a guy working the fire all day?
Well, for me, buy restaurant equipment. Though, that's what I tell people all the time. Buy restaurant equipment because cooking on them offsets, that's all. Man, it's so sexy. There's nothing like it. But boy, that's a lot of work. Now I don't know if this is a known fact, but what a lot of the Texas guys are doing, and when I say Texas guys, I mean guys in 50 states that are cooking Texas style barbecue, they cook all day and throw it in a warmer overnight, and then that's tomorrow's barbecue. So they don't have to stay up all night cooking,
Yeah.
which is certainly makes it easier. So you can watch those big smokers between 9 in the morning and 9 at night and still have good barbecue. You don't have to, it's no longer 9 at night till 9 in the morning. But I still think if I'm trying to make money, I'm buying restaurant equipment. So that means an Old Hickory or Southern Pride. The Fast Eddies are a great bend on that because they're really cooking with wood, but they're automated just like the Old Hickories and Southern Prides.
And hey, no matter what equipment you use, figure out how to hold food. That's pretty important.
Yeah.
That's way more important than cooking it. That's exactly right. Spend money.
All
That's,
right.
that's where you spend your money, on those holding cabinets.
Well, I
Another-
want to make sure we save plenty of time to get to TV. So let me just wrap up this segment and ask. So if when you're looking back on your career so far in barbecue, what was the biggest business risk that you took, and did it pay off?
Well, the biggest one was jumping in, not knowing what I was going to do.
Moving to Florida.
Yeah, I mean, that was clearly and it was a failure. I mean, like I said, that people don't want to hear, nowadays the story reads like, yeah, he kicked his boss in the balls and said, fuck you, I'm going to Florida and I'm going to sell barbecue, and he made $1 million. Well, that's not what happened at all. It's not even close to that. So that was the worst one. But I'll tell you another story. I don't think I've ever told this story publicly, but so I worked for Big Green Egg for 17 years as their chef, grew up with them. They helped me immensely and I helped them immensely. It was a great run. But they had a new guy and they were a little tired of me, and the modern influencers were really coming to the forefront and I was not that. And so one day they called me and said, we want to adjust your contract after 17 years. And I said, does that mean less money? And they said, yes. And I said, well, I don't want to do that. I said, it's been fun. Let's just call it a day and go our separate ways. And it was uncomfortable for all of us, but that's what we did. And I was like, screw that. I bought these fancy wooden business cards. I'm going to the Hearth and Patio show in next month, and I'm going to get a new job. Somebody's going to hire me again. I'm the guy that invented this whole concept, and I was still pretty influential. And I get to New Orleans for the show, and it's the weekend of COVID hitting. It's like we all know where we were that weekend. Like, oh my God, what is actually happening? So obviously nobody was hiring spokesmen that day.
Yeah.
It didn't work out that well, but I'll never be mad at myself for having big balls.
Absolutely. So Ray, you've talked about building barbecue into a business, and part of that, not only creating, the flavors that you have, since turned into your seasoning line, but also recipes that people love. And I'd like to just dig in a little bit there. You are a celebrated cookbook author, and, today anybody can just post a recipe online, right? Yep.
That's my first one. Oh yeah. That's the second one.
Anybody can post a recipe online. I think you are 9 cookbooks, 10.
Yeah.
Yep.
9. I always say I'm working on the 10th one, but I'm not really working on it.
Okay, got it. And I'm assuming, extensive testing, and, what's the difference between those two worlds, recipe that anybody can put up online and, the rigor that you go through in your books?
Well, it's just 2 different generations. When I was doing it, I mean, that book that Brian has, it's in 2 color. I mean, there was no color pictures in that book. It's not that long ago. It's 20 years ago, but it just was so different then. So cookbooks were still a big deal back then. And the reason I got that cookbook deal, Steve Raiklen his books were just coming to life and really catching on. And there just wasn't a lot of other barbecue books out there. So the publishers were looking for their guy to do that. And St. Martin's Press in New York, it's a long story, but I stumbled into this beautiful deal and they hired me to write this cookbook. Well, it turned out I was good at it. I didn't know. I'd never written a book. I mean, I thought I was pretty well spoken, but can you translate that to paper? And what they told me early on was you write in your own voice. So when we read this book, it sounds like you talking. And apparently that's a big gift that I did not know I had or needed. So it turned out I was pretty good at it. And so I learned how to be a really good cookbook author. So you have an editor that just will not let anything go. Everything's got to be perfect, spelled right, worded right. You can't, I mean, these guys drive you crazy, but it was great. And there's testers, there's people that test your recipes and everything's got to be a really good recipe. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying every one was my best, but they were all viable. And nowadays, the first book's easy because you've saved up all your jokes and your recipes and your stories. So that one's really easy to do. The second one's pretty hard. And if you get through the second one, then you can do a third one. You get pretty good at it. And I did get good at it towards the end or through it as I went through it. But it was just so different. It was important. So when I look at these recipes that get published now, well, nobody ever tested them. Nobody ever made sure, edited the wording of these recipes. I had a format. I had to match every recipe in one of my books. They may differ from book to book, but the ones within that book, they're perfectly matched the way they're worded and structured because that's what you did. Nowadays, everybody can write anything and nobody tells them, hey, that's not very good. Why don't you redo it? They just post it and there it is. And that I don't like that. It's watered it down. They also have the internet to steal each other's recipes. You ever go looking for a brown butter chicken recipe or something, and you find 20 of them that are exactly the same on people's blogs?
Yeah. I hear what you say, and I mean, I fell victim to this. You know, I did it to myself. I saw a recipe on Facebook for this Chex Mix that was a pickle dill flavored, and my niece wanted to do it because she's into pickles and everything. And I'm like, look what I found, let's do it. And it was terrible. I did it in the smoker. I couldn't get anything crispy. And when I looked back at the real Chex Mix recipe, there was a huge difference in the amount of liquid, right? And so I, recreated it with an appropriate amount of pickle juice, and it was fantastic. And I went back and looked at that stupid Facebook post that got me down this path to begin with. And there's hundreds of comments, people tagging people, you got to try this. This looks good. We got to do this. And only one comment from somebody that said, this was horrible. The ratios are all wrong. What's wrong with you people?
Yep.
So anybody's right?
Like so much on the internet these days, it's about the shock value too. Making a really great burger is one thing, but what you need to do for the social media is an 8-high burger that no one could ever eat possibly, but that's the one that's going to get all the, like tomahawk steaks. That's the dumbest thing ever. Why would you pay for the extra bone after the first time? Buy one, take a picture with it. Don't ever buy that again. Boy, was I wrong on that one.
Totally. So I'm curious, out of all the recipes you've created, is there one that surprised you by becoming a fan favorite more than you kind of expected it to?
I don't know. The ones in the cookbooks, you don't get that instant reaction like you would now. But I'll run into somebody that has been cooking one of my recipes for 20 years, and they love it so much. And one that I didn't even think about, some chicken rub I made in the second book or something. And I'll meet somebody that's been winning with it. I met guys that were winning with, I had a pork injection that I made in, I don't know which book, one of them. I lose track of them, but it was, so Chris Lilly had just come out with this whole recipe. They did CDs with video of Chris injecting this pork shoulder, and you have it. A lot of people did, and so Chris had done this injection recipe, and there was some other trend that was happening at the time. So I kind of combined the two and made my pork injection. Didn't think much about it. And I run into some guys from the middle of Missouri there that were cooking, and they were like, man, we're all kicking ass with your pork injection. I was like, man, I should try that. I've never used it in a contest. So
Well,
it's fun to hear those kind of stories. The video I did that got the most attention ever is it was a brisket flat cooking on the big green egg. And to this day, I get calls about this. And I went to wrap the brisket, and I poured a cup of coffee, brewed coffee in there to wrap the brisket. And that probably has gotten the most reaction of anything I've ever done, any one recipe.
Cool. And
well,
so,
it works.
yeah,
Coffee
delicious.
brisket mop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you, in addition to your cookbooks, you have your own line of barbecue rubs. And I'm going to put them on the screen here.
Good job, man.
Yeah. What's that?
You're a tech wizard.
You know what? Watch what I can do again. Wow.
Nice.
Awesome. I've got it down. So you've got these amazing 4 rubs, your Peach Chipotle, which was part of our 2023 Essential Seasonings collection at
Thank
Barbecue.
you.
Love it.
Yeah. Your Nashville style hot chicken rub, your garlic and herb Italian beef, and your Chicago style steak and chop rub. And we have flavor guides on 2 of the 4 of those. We got to get harder at work to get the flavor guide on your other 2. And just want to talk a little bit about, how does developing a seasoning differ from developing a recipe for a cookbook?
Well, I mean, I developed a lot of rubs over the years as part of a recipe. I never wanted to just say, buy a bottle of my rub. So I didn't have, well, I had a different line of products way back, but they've been long gone. So I had the basic of these. Each one has a story. The hot chicken rub, I was in Nashville when hot chicken was blowing up. I was at the convention center for a show of some kind, and they had hot chicken strips at the booth there. So I'm like, oh, good, I'll go. And they were like mild, and I was mad. I was like, that's not right. If you're going to call it hot chicken, it should be spicy. And then I started thinking, well, there's no real hot chicken rub out there for grilling, so I'm going to make one, and I'm going to make it hot. So I did that and had it bottled up, and I was still working for Big Green Egg, and they had their own products, so they didn't really want me to do anything with it. It just kind of sat around. And then when we had the restaurant down here, we used it in there on some things. But again, I still was working with Green Egg, so I couldn't sell it. But that one's been around for a long time, and it's hot. I mean, it's not the best seller because not everybody likes hot food. But if you're a fire eater, I think you'd like it.
Yeah.
The Italian beef one.
I am a big fan. It's my favorite. Probably, I love the peach chipotle, but I really like this one because I love the Nashville hot chicken flavor, but I'm not into that greasy hot oil they pour all over it. I don't need that. I mean, I just want to cook a piece of it on my grill for 10 minutes and get, a lot of that flavor without all the calories and the regret the next day.
Man, you are the man, Brian. That was exactly my thinking, because traditionally Nashville hot chicken is fried with bread and fried, which I'm not against that by any stretch, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted those flavors on something grilled, and thank you. That makes me happy.
You found your fan. I'm that guy.
Thank you. You're that one guy that likes the hot one. The Peach Chipotle is the most popular. And it's very much more like a whole lot of other people's barbecue rubs. It's the only one of my 4 that has sugar in it.
Yes, so good.
But that's an interesting story too. That is Peach Chipotle was just a word I came up with when I was doing a barbecue sauce for one of my cookbooks. And it was peach preserves, and you take a little can of chipotles and adobo, throw that in a blender, and then turn those 2 things into a barbecue sauce. So that's an old recipe in one of my books. And we had the restaurant, we had it bottled up. We actually had them making buckets of it, and it was our sweet sauce at the restaurant. When we got done with that project, with the restaurant closed, and that's when I could do this, because I was didn't have anything infringing on me doing it. I didn't want to do sauces. I wanted to do rubs. So we turned the Peach Chipotle into a dry rub. And that's definitely the most traditional one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you were pretty early on the peach flavor. I mean, there's a bunch of them now, and yours is the first one I remember commercially anyway.
I wonder how that happened.
I don't know.
Aren't we starting to see a bunch of Italian seasonings as well?
Hey,
Interesting.
man,
Yeah.
there's only so many flavors, and everybody's got to get their piece.
That's
right?
true.
So,
So the
Doc,
Italian beef seasoning was intended to be, I always wanted, when I moved down here, I couldn't get a good Italian beef, the Chicago thing.
coming from
And
Chicago, yeah.
I had to create my own recipe. I bought a slicer because the only way you can make good Italian beef is slicers right over there. I don't use it much these days. And so
Right.
when it came time to do these, I wanted to make a seasoning so that here's the secret recipe right here. A third of a cup of that seasoning, a third a cup of olive oil, 2 cups of water, warm it up, and then buy a pound of thin sliced roast beef at the deli, throw it in there, and in 5 minutes you have a great Italian beef. But it's also good like on a pork chop or on a steak or something. But that's what I wanted. That's one that was in the back of my head for years that I needed to do.
The herbs in that particular seasoning are so awesome. I throw it on veggies. I throw it on top of a salad. I mean, it's so tasty.
It also makes instant garlic bread. So you take a piece of French bread, you butter it, put some of that on there, throw it in the oven or broiler for a couple of minutes, and it's instant garlic bread.
I don't know why the heck we haven't thought of that, but yes, let's do that.
Look at this.
Hey, Jeff Balmani is here from all the way from Vietnam.
All right. A big thank you for being on the show, Dr. Barbecue, from Jeff, all the way from Vietnam. Wow.
Very cool.
Very cool.
I'm glad you guys
definitely our first caller from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Anyway, the last one is the steak and chop seasoning. That was actually just an idea, and the co-packer helped me put that one together. I wanted a salt, pepper, garlic with a little bit of something else to it. It's got a little charcoal flavor to it, and that one was the easy one out of the 4.
It's chunky. I like chunky when it comes.
Yeah,
to
I wanted that. I didn't want it to be like fine.
What are you reaching for at home if you're just cooking casually?
The salt, pepper, garlic, the Chicago steak and chop has become my go-to for my all-purpose. I've been a Lowry's seasoned salt guy my whole life. At home, that's what I would always use. And really, I've gotten away from it, and I'm using my steak and chop seasoning as my all-purpose at home.
Yeah, I think that's such a big thing that has occurred to me over the years of working on the flavor guide that we've done. I mean, back in the day, wow, this says steak and chop. I should only use it on steaks and chops. And it's just seasonings in a bottle that you can deploy in so many different ways. I want to make sure we have time for our final segment on the barbecue TV shows because you have such a great story there. So I am going to pass it back over to you, Mr. Freak, and take us away.
Yeah, let's jump into that by asking, how did you first make that jump into barbecue TV? Did they come looking for you, or did you worm your way into that, or how'd that happen?
Well, it's always a little bit of both, but barbecue TV starts with John Marcus. I don't know if you guys have ever had John on the show or talked to John.
No, sir.
So John Marcus is, he's an amazing character. He lives in New York. He was the head writer on the Cosby Show. He and just is one of those New York comedy writers. And John is a big barbecue fan. And he was doing a radio show with Al Franken. Al Franken's his good buddy. And they were doing a radio show, and they were going to go on the road and take the show to barbecue joints in the South. Well, they didn't think about, I guess, that these were two Jewish liberal guys from New York heading into barbecue restaurants in the South. And it was, or maybe they did. They probably did, honestly. You should have John on someday because
that's part of the natural tension, right?
I'm sure that's probably really what they were thinking. Now, the story goes, and you'd have to ask Myron if you talk to him. I never actually asked him this, but the story goes that they were going to go to Myron's restaurant. He had a restaurant in Vienna at the time. And Myron called back and said he just wasn't going to be able to do that. It wasn't good. He wanted to, but it wasn't going to work out with his family and friends that if he did that. So they went on. Now I'm probably making 2 stories into one, but they went to Big Bob Gibson's in Decatur, Alabama. So they go there and they do the show. And Chris Lilly, if you guys haven't had Chris on, you really should get him too. Those guys, they'll all do your show. They're fun guys. But Chris takes the opportunity to pitch John on this idea that they should do a barbecue show. Well, John Marcus is the guy with the wherewithal to put together a TV show. So I don't know, I mean, I think, he would say it just was like, sure, let's do that. And they sorted it out and they did it. It was Chris and John Marcus. And that was the first barbecue show. Now I didn't know John at the time, but Chris was a good friend of mine. And the list was short back then. There was
Which show was that?
All-Star Barbecue Showdown, I think.
Okay.
It was on the Outdoor Life Network.
Mhm.
It was 1 year, and then the next year it had a different name, I think, but it was a similar
I
name.
probably never
barbecue.
saw that one because they don't show OLN in Chicago. You only get that if you go to like Colorado or ski
Yeah,
resort.
right. At the time, for sure. Yeah, but it's a long time ago, man. But now they rerun all of them. The old ones, I haven't seen. I shouldn't say that. I haven't seen those in a long time. Those original ones. But so they did that 1 year, and then the second year they have everybody's excited about it. So we all going to go to Reno and have a tournament. So we set up at the Reno Rib Fest out there over Labor Day, whatever they call it, at the Nugget in Reno, and they rent this space and they build a set for us, and they invite a tournament full of people. And now they've got a big budget. So I don't know. I was there. Fast Eddie, Leanne, Adam Perry Lang was there. Seth Sarah, that had been on Hell's Kitchen, was there with us. Oh gosh, it was a real array of people, and we all stayed there for the week. So we're getting drunk in the casino every night, and then the next day we're making TV, and they had this whole tournament, and man, we had a good time. Mike Davis was there, and they had Daryl Dawkins, the basketball player, and Michelle Richard, who was a big deal French chef, and who was that girl, the comedy actress that was a judge as well. I mean, this was a big budget thing. We did that. And then the next year it went back to it. Maybe the next year it went into be Pitmasters, because this is all the same evolution. There's only one barbecue show the first 5 years or whatever. The Food Network didn't care about us. They would never have it. They would come to like the Jack and shoot a third person kind of thing, but they would never like engage us like John was doing. And that was the beginning of it. But really, the reason I was involved was I was on the short list. They would call Myron, Chris, me. There was Leanne always got called. She was the only girl at the time that they thought about calling. And Melissa got in there pretty early too. But we were just, they called me always, I was one of the first few guys they would call and I had the silly beard and I figured out how to get good on TV right away.
So what are the producers looking for in the talent that has a good shot at being on these things?
Well, nowadays it's evolved so much. Let me give you the next minute of that story. I befriended Guy Fieri. Guy was coming around barbecue contests, wanting to make friends with us. He wasn't on TV yet. And me and Guy became friends. So all of a sudden, when he started doing TV shows, I was getting on the Food Network. When they started doing Pitmasters, I couldn't do both per their contract. Guy didn't care. His people didn't care. But so I never was on Pitmasters because I was doing Food Network stuff. Yeah. So it's really kind of interesting. They would do these one-offs where they would actually incorporate me. But then it's evolved over time to it's a puzzle. Any TV show, when they make them like that, it's a puzzle. So now they really want X amount of women. They want X amount of people of color. They want tall guys, short guys, Asian guys. You name it. They're really looking for, and not even just their cultural background, but how do they cook? Is this guy work at a Chinese restaurant and cook the barbecue? And I'm just using that as an example, but they really want diversity. They want to fill in this puzzle of all these different characters now. So don't be like everybody else. I guess there's a recurring theme with my advice. Don't be like everybody else. Do your own thing, and maybe it'll work out for you.
All right. So,
and be also don't try to.
If you're a middle-aged white guy, what do I need? A funny hat, or what can I do?
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
I already got a funny name, Mr. Freak. Hey.
Well, it's worth a shot. You never
don't
know.
Have one of those.
But yeah, middle-aged white guys with beards they got a lot of those. That's a dime a dozen.
Unfortunately, I got a face for radio, so I probably got no chance. But what's it really like being on those shows? I'm sure everything gets edited down, but how much is really in your control and the participants' control versus scripted and directed and nudged in different directions?
Definitely not scripted and directed for us. The theme of the show, the judges are. If you're judge, you're under their control. They're in your ear. I've done a bunch of that too. But if you're cooking, no, they want you. So you got to be careful. When I cooked on Chopped, we did the first outdoor Chopped, and I'm cooking against this guy from New York, a French chef guy. I don't know what he was doing on our show, and he was just kind of a jerk. He didn't think much of us. He said my food was best served in a prison cell. So
Snap.
but so in between, so you know, when you're shooting 20 minutes, ready, set, go, it's 20 minutes. We don't stop that for anything. You cut your hand, you're on your own. Good luck with that. But in between, it's hours of sitting around, and they always have a room for us, and we'll go sit in our room and talk. So I'm talking to this guy all day, and I'm telling him, be careful when they interview you. They'll try to get you to say bad stuff about me. Don't do it, because he hadn't done any TV. And sure enough, he talked shit about me all day. And I kept saying, oh, I'm just honored to be here cooking against Galen. And at the end of the day, I won. And they made me look like the nicest guy ever, and him like such a jerk, because he kept saying my food would serve best in a prison cell, and then I beat him. So
French villain.
Be careful. But again, you got to be yourself. The camera sees right through that. You got to be yourself, and genuine, and just be interesting and have fun.
Well, maybe old Galen was being himself. You never know. Maybe
I think he was
a jerk in real life.
I think that's exactly right.
So what kind of things are out of your control on a show like that?
You don't know what you're getting to cook. You never know. You're going to find out on the fly like everybody else. So you got to think fast. You got to have a bunch of ideas in your head, and then you hope you just make a quick, good decision. I mean, we all generally know how to cook things properly. You try to get it done on time. Don't overshoot, because you may run out of time. But if you don't do anything and you just sit around, they'll call you on that too. But yeah, it's probably the ingredients and what you're going to have to cook. The grills too, they do the best they can to have them consistent for you. But you all of a sudden decide you want to cook something blazing hot, and that grill is just at medium. Well, do you have enough time to get it hot? The only ingredient I ever knew.
Oh, are they're running grills for you, and it's like, okay, you're on, show up here and cook something?
Yeah, they're basically ready to go in whatever that means. And sometimes they do better than others. Fire Masters. You ever see Fire Masters? It was on up in Canada, and it was on here. That guy, I knew that guy. He was great. Those grills were exactly where we wanted them all the time. He was the best. But anyway, I knew one ingredient of all the shows I've done that I knew, and it was on Chopped, and I could smell it. You stand there in front of the basket, and you do 20 fake opens for the camera, and I knew there was a fish in there, because it was the only ingredient I ever knew.
So which is more fun, cooking on TV or judging on TV?
Well, judging's a whole lot easier,
Well, yeah, it's no pressure.
and yeah, you can't really go wrong. No matter what you say or do as a judge, they're going to edit that out and make you look good. But I don't, certainly when I was younger, the thrill of cooking, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Now, gosh, on Barbecue Brawl, the way they do those shows now, I couldn't outrun any of them people. I'm an old man, and they would all run and push you out of the way. It's only so. When we were younger, I'd have knocked a few of them down, but there's only so much you can do about it. So these days, I'd probably prefer to judge. But when I was younger, cooking's a lot of fun, man. It's nothing like winning one of them.
All right. Well, maybe you can help us produce my next idea, which is combat barbecue. You have to do it in the rain and the mud, and sometimes you might have to arm wrestle in between.
We already cook in the rain and the mud.
Yeah, that's
but we
right.
don't typically arm wrestle.
Well, in my world, we cooked in the rain and the mud. You guys all hide in your trailer now. we stood on the ground and cooked.
You've never seen Smoke Freaks at a competition.
It's green in buckets.
Yep.
You mean
and
you don't
all
have
our craps in the
trailers?
street.
We don't have.
We have a trailer, but that's just to get our stuff there. Then we're in the street.
Oh, I'm proud of you. That's old school.
It's not one of those kind of trailers.
All right.
Well, before we wrap this thing up here, do you have any behind the scenes stories of something crazy that happened on the set of a barbecue show, even if you don't name names?
And my favorite story, I've told it a million times, and even Chris starts telling this story because it's so good. So we're doing the first ever barbecue show, and we're in Corpus Christi, and it's me versus Myron versus Randy Pauly. Randy's the guy. I don't know if you know who Randy is. Randy these days is the guy behind Bucky's Barbecue. He's a retired Houston firefighter. Anyway, we're the three guys competing, and the judges are Ed Royth and Bill, the guy from down there in Texas, and Rocky Danner. And so they put us in this trailer, and literally it was this little crappy black and white monitor. It wasn't like now. And we're sitting there watching. We're all jammed in this trailer because we're away from them, but they're judging and talking about it as we go. So they're all kind of obnoxious, like full of themselves. So they're like, "Oh, this is kind of shitty, and this is chewy, and this is tough," and it's clearly looking like I'm winning and Myron's not. And Chris is in there with us too because he was the host of the show, and Myron's getting madder and madder. They keep talking about it, and he's like, "I want to go out there and kick all their asses." And Randy Pauly says, "Well, I could probably take one of them." And Myron says, "You don't need to take any of them. Just don't let none of them get away." That's always, I love that story. That's such a Myron story.
Don't let them get
But
away.
we'd never seen people judging us and talking shit about us before. It didn't sit very well with any of us, to be honest. It was just what it was.
Well, man, that hour went quick, and we've got to move into wrap-up mode. So we'll just do a few quick hit questions. Dr. Barbecue, what legacy do you hope to leave behind in the barbecue world?
That's interesting. I actually think about that at this point in my life, and I don't know. I've had so many accolades. There's a Hall of Fame trophy in the other room. I feel like that was the real turning point for me. And I said it when you had given my speech. I was like, you think you're doing all this stuff. You think you're doing good. You think people notice and you're pretty good at it, but you're never really sure. And when they give you the Hall of Fame trophy, that's kind of like a lock-in that, okay, they were paying attention and they did like what I did. So I don't know. Nothing specific. It was a lot of fun, man. I certainly had a good time, and I like to think we laid a lot of good groundwork for what folks are doing now.
Yeah, you done good.
Well, I hope that there's a little more left for you hang up your tongs. Anything coming next for you that you can talk about?
Oh yeah, I try to be retired. No, probably not a book. There's no money in books anymore. I got paid really well for some of those books. That NFL book, I got paid real well for that one.
Yeah.
But there's no money in it anymore, and it's a lot of work. So I doubt that I'll ever do that. I have thought about doing some sort of a life wrap-up book, like sort of reminisce about it all, what went through it, because I like talking about it, obviously, and I got a million stories, but I probably won't get around to it. It's a lot of work writing a cookbook or any kind of book, and I probably won't do that. But I am I was kind of being retired, and this guy came to me with this new charcoal, the African charcoal.
Yeah,
it's really a great product, so I can't help but get involved, and they're really happy with me because we show up at a barbecue event and everybody wants to talk to me. So we've got them immediately. They're ready. Now we can get them to try our charcoal, and it's really good stuff. So I jumped into that, and my seasonings have been kind of flatlined for a while. And all of a sudden something new has landed on my table as a way to really take them to the next level. And, while I'd really rather just stay here and do nothing, I still kind of got it, and you get your blood pumping a little bit. So you might see some more life out of my seasoning business soon.
Awesome. I sure hope so. Well, finally, how can our listeners find your products, follow your journey? What's your socials?
Yeah, I'm not really hard to find. I was smart enough to buy drbarbq.com, drbbq.com, and everything kind of runs through there. I couldn't get my Instagram is real Dr. Barbecue because somebody has it and they never use it, and I've never bothered to try to get it. So now you build up a following in real Dr. Barbecue, but everything else out there is Dr. Barbecue. My Facebook Dr. Barbecue page got locked up somewhere along the way. So if you want me there, you got to find Ray Lampe, but I'm just not very hard to find.
Awesome. Ray, well, thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your story, and sharing some barbecue wisdom with us tonight. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next month on Flavor Talk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barbecue.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.